firstly, thank you everyone for joining the session, and thank you to the panel for coming for the conversation today. Thank you, Rohit, Mukesh, and Manoj. It's a pleasure to have you all.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Hello everyone. So the primary intent of why we wanted to gather on this particular conversation that talks about the trust and culture economy in turbulent times, right? And I think when we talk about that, the first thing I want to say is I hope everyone's doing great, is keeping themselves safe, and actually feeling energetic and motivated about working from home or wherever it is that you're operating from, right? Like I'm sure over the last 3 months, all of us have been put under very different circumstances than what we are familiar with and what we are used to. But we strongly believe that these are times when we will be the culture or the values of every individual as the organization, as well as the organization, will be put to test, right? It is those culture and values that will actually help us navigate any of these changes and any of these scenarios that we are being put through. And in the same spirit, we wanted to gather today to talk about what is it that we should put focus on, right? And what is it that organizations should pay caution to in terms of protecting culture even in these times? How do we leverage culture and values in these times so that every employee who is spread across so many locations is still able to feel connected to the organization, right? How can that happen? If we are no longer catching up at office, we are no longer able to look up to that leader who is around on the floor, right? You miss all those minor examples that you can see when you are at work, right? And then how do you still perpetuate culture in such kind of environment? That's the primary reason we wanted to catch up. What role does culture play in this context, and how can we still make sure that the entire org feels one and the same? So we had a panel thought about in the same context, and we could not think of anyone better, right? Like firstly, I want to introduce the panel we have today. We have Mr. Mukesh Agarwal, Chief People Officer at Tata Steel Long Product. Mukesh has been a HR leader in the iconic Tata Group for almost 14 years now. An organization that we all look up to in terms of values and culture, right? If there is anything that is that represents unity in terms of how everyone connects to the org, I think this is one org, and we feel there's a lot we can learn from how Tata Steel Long Product has navigated through the crisis and what role culture played. Secondly, I want to introduce Mr. Rohit Jindal, Head HR of Hygienic Research Institute, HRI. One of the, in fact, largest hair care consumer product company in India. I would say, with Rohit Jindal, Mr. Rohit Jindal has actually a diverse background of having worked in retail as well as, I think, construction industry, if I'm not wrong, real estate and infrastructure industry, if I'm not wrong. But we can call him an expert in the retail space. He's worked with brands like Raymond's and Reliance Retail in the past. I'm sure we have a lot to learn from how does retail in general or these organizations value culture and how do they play out in these times. Lastly, we have Mr. Manoj Agarwal, the co-founder of Xoxoday, a product that contributes greatly in terms of driving values and behaviors through incentives and rewards, right? I think Manoj will put it in the best way possible, but Manoj has had the experience of working with Flipkart, organizations like Flipkart and Yahoo in the past. We look forward to some perspectives from Manoj as a leader of an organization and also as a prior employee of these iconic organizations in the past, right? Thank you everyone for joining us again. I would like to step into the discussion and start having our speakers share insights on what is it that they've experienced over the past few months and what are organizations doing to navigate through these times, right? So the first thing, everyone, that I wanted to ask, and this is for all the three speakers, right? And there is no better way to start the conversation than asking each of us on how have the last 3 months been, right? With so much that has happened in the last 3 months, what would you say are like the top 3 takeaways or learnings you have had in your own organization or leading your organization through these changes? If one of you can start, Rohit or Mukesh.
Okay. Yeah. So, in fact, good evening, everybody. So that there has been 3 months. We have been all as Indians, have been fighting with the crisis, and has been, it's type of a somersault, some type of a journey which has been, I would say, which has happened around the corner. So the top 3 learnings for we as an organization would be, for me especially, the first and foremost would be the ability. The ability of the ecosystem in which you work. It gets tested. Whatever the environment you work, you will be able to get results. And in fact, we also as an organization were able to, initially there were some thoughts, how the things will happen, what will happen, how we will be able to maneuver. But as slowly and steadily the time passed, I think we were able to realign our goals in a better fashion. We also were able to easily adjust to the environment. In fact, the productivity got manifold up. The second would be the resilience. And the third would be the agility. In fact, I feel these are the cousins. Resilience and as well as agility, both are the close cousins. They stand back to back as if, how cousins stand. The resilience, it augments your energy in our inner worlds, and the agility, it helps you to channelize it to meet the demands of the external environment. So if you have been resilient and has been agile, I think you would have been able to navigate through the current situation with some ease. These would be my top 3 learnings.
Interesting. And I think, the ability to adapt is what we were talking even before this session. I think one thing we keep talking about in our organization, at least, is what I was sharing with the panel also just before. Our namesake godfather is Mr. Charles Darwin, and he said one thing very long ago, right? It is not the strongest of the species that survive, but the most adaptable to change, right? And I think right now the entire humanity is being put to that test and being asked to prove that we can all adapt, right? That's great insight, Mr. Rohit. Mukesh, if you can add on, what are like the top 3 learnings that a long-standing organization like Tata has felt in this entire?
Yeah. So thank you and good evening, everyone. I'll share my key takeaways with some of the examples or initiatives which Tata have taken. So first takeaway is that during such adversities, your key values becomes most dominant, and this gets exemplified in your treatment with every stakeholder. So some of the steps, no salary cut, which is something very basic for Tata. No salary cut even for contract labor. Not even retrenchment. Even if the work is not happening, the contract workers are given special leave. And we also recognize that there are a lot of small contractors who doesn't have enough turnover. So we made sure that for their worker salary, Tata will fund the bill. So taking care of the contract workers, their owners, people, also our ex-employees. So a lot of our senior people called up our ex-employees to check if they are okay, how's their well-being, and in case they need any support. We also kept our employees engaged by asking for volunteerism, and anybody who is in the society who needs some kind of just to have a chat for 30 minutes with somebody, especially elderly people. We engage our people to get into this concept which we call as Parrishta. Second thing which we also realized, that the spirit of being human is above everything. So there was a need that we run a 24/7 continuous operation plant, and the plant cannot stop. So in such cases, there was a need instead, in case when people need to stay within the plant doesn't have people stay facility. So within 2 days, we converted all our offices, conference rooms, restrooms into places where people can comfortably stay. Officers, workers, contract labor, all of them together at the same place without any differentiation, all treatment being similar, treatment being extended to them. And the third thing which we realized, that adversity leads to innovation. So there are a lot of things which we were thinking. So Tata, as a lot of you would be knowing, that we have been instrumental in laying down labor laws. So 48 hours work week, PF Act, annual bonus, annual leave with wages, maternity act, all of them got introduced as a scheme in Tata Steel, and then they were adopted by the nation as a law of land. So for last 15 years, we were thinking what could be the next. We have not done something pioneering. So during this adversity, we came up with the thought, can there be a 4-day work week for workers? Now, while we have done it 5 days week for white collar, which was again a very remarkable step for our kind of industry, 24/7 process industry, but we are advocating very closely with government to introduce 4 days week with 12-hour shift. So that is at a very advanced stage. If this happens, we believe that this would be a revolution in the industry. Similarly, you would have seen that the railway wagons were converted into isolation rooms. So this idea, when we were thinking as to how to in-house or accommodate people inside plant, we have a lot of internal railway tracks inside the plant. We requested railway to provide us wagons. We will furnish it as for restrooms where people can comfortably stay there. And from that idea, one of our employees wrote to PMO office, and that idea got channelized into isolation rooms from there. And we got an acknowledgement for that. There are a lot of other innovative work. We introduced almost 4 months back something called Suraksha card. This was for all contract labor. This was introduced with the purpose of ensuring the safety. They don't go into hazardous places unless authorized to do so. We also find out their positioning at any point in time. This is a GPS-enabled card. The whole purpose was an investment of 100 crores only for contract worker safety. That was the value, and now the same card is being used to ensure that people maintain social distancing. In case people do not follow the norms of masking or keeping them safe, not getting into authorized area, all of them can immediately be triggered, and somebody can immediately pass on that information to them. The Suraksha card can immediately send a buzz that you are closer to somebody within 6 feet. Having this implemented at such a large scale for 20,000 workers itself was a challenge. But since we were already into that journey, the same idea could immediately be adopted for this work. And we have a complete daily war room meeting where all these ideas are being discussed and implemented at the speed of light. So we have entire analytics dashboard, which is reviewed by senior management about entire happening development on the COVID, number of patients which are increasing, how many people are getting discharged from our hospital. So we operate out of Jamshedpur. We have our own hospital, 1,000 bedded hospital. This hospital is serving for the need of the entire community in and around Jamshedpur. So our GT hostels have been converted into isolation rooms. Our guest houses have been converted into isolation. We could do all of this because we come with a value, and there's a purpose and intent behind to do all of that. So there are a lot of things to share, but some of the things which I thought relevant.
That is really great to know, Mr. Mukesh. And I mean, you're talking about some of the really advanced technological implementations as well, right? Like when you spoke about Suraksha card, I think we've heard of such kind of, I'm guessing it's an RFID based technology or a geo-based technology that helps know.
The geo-based technology. RFID is obsolete. Now this is a geo-based technology which needs to be recharged every day.
Correct. And like, I think one thing I was thinking about when you said this is, I keep hearing this from everyone, right? If there is anything that happened in the last 3 months, I think we accelerated into the future in terms of using technology at least by like a few years. Right? And not just technology, I think in even many other practices. So what you said in terms of trying out longer work days and fewer work weeks is something that probably we debated about, but we thought we'll get there only in few years. I think even that is getting accelerated a bit. Right, and I think we are definitely heading into the future, but of course we all hope to build a safer future. The responsibility of making sure we have a safer future is also in our hands. And one thing I felt when, let's say, Rohit and Mukesh, you were sharing, right, the learnings and the takeaways are reflecting the background of the organization as well. I think Rohit, HRI is a retail org that's gone into work from home mode, suddenly after so long. And Tata Steel Long Product had to deal with the adversity and still make sure operations run with all the safety precautions, right? And that's the spirit of, still fighting the adversity that is coming out. Manoj, I want to hear from you. You bring the third dimension of being a technology company's leader, right? Which actually has the fungibility to, either work from home or work from office. When you were to go through this situation, your org was to go through this situation, what were the learnings?
Yeah, thanks, Gowthami. Good evening, everyone. Great inputs, Mukesh, and we all look upon companies like Tata to learn from them. So, yeah, great. As a company, we had a lot of our own learnings, and we learned from a lot of other companies also being in the business of employee engagement and motivation. We get a macro picture of what is happening in different companies. Some of the prominent things which we learned from these 3-4 months is one about, so these 3 months gave us a lot of time to introspect, because otherwise we are always in a race, we are just running. And this time gave us a pause and reflect upon a lot of things which we have been doing. And that helped us get the right focus in different things, right from how we can improve our client processes, how can we help our existing clients better than we have been doing, how can we improvise our sales processes, how can we improvise our policies around anything which we do, whether it is around the employee policies or whether it is around anything else. And then a lot of cost which starts creeping in within the system, which you generally ignore in a day-to-day environment. That again gets much more time to focus upon that. How can you really do more with less? How can you spend less resources but still don't compromise on the delivery or on the output? So that has been one great learning, and we have actually positively benefited out of it. The second thing which as a company has been in the DNA of our company has been the digital first culture. Right when we started 7 years back, we have always been a very digitally savvy company, be it our processes, be it our policies, be it the way we do our things. Now, the challenge which we have been facing, and not only us, I'm sure that it has been a challenge for companies across the globe, that the digital culture starts getting accepted when the entire macro environment starts getting kind of takes it in the positive spirit. Now, let's say before this entire Corona situation, even if a sales team is willing to adopt some digital methods, whether it is in their demos or whether it is about the meetings, etc., the response was not always right, because the other guy is not very interested in the digital way of doing things. But because of this entire 3 months where we are actually forced to kind of optimize things digitally, that has been a great adoption, not only in a particular team, which is, let's say, tech team, which are by default very digital, but it has come across all the teams, whether it is finance team, HR, etc., etc. So whether it is a simple thing like, why do we even do checks? Why can't the payments be online? And that reduces so much of bandwidth for everyone. It reduces so much of wastage of paper. So those are things which have been again helping us. The third thing, which might sound very very different, because most of the times we feel that because we are not spending face time with our employees, we start getting a feel that we are not engaging with employees in a great way. But I think the employee engagement dimensions have improved in the last 3 months. One, because people have started understanding the nuances of employee engagement. Earlier it was taken for granted, now people are taking it seriously. And the second thing is, when things are going good, you kind of don't take them seriously. But now everyone is taking engagement very seriously, and that entire inertia that you can engage a person only when you are face to face with that person, you can only engage your client only when you travel down to the location, is kind of going away. So you are now getting a feel that yes, you can engage with people even when you are not having FaceTime. I mean, you can engage them through phone calls, through video calls, etc. So these are some great learnings which we had in the last 3 months, and we expect that we will continue the same, and a lot of other organizations will continue the same.
Yeah. That's really interesting to know, Manoj, that and again, one thing that everyone will agree with, right? Like if there was anything that happened in these 3 months, it is self-introspection, so that can lead to improvement and excellence in every aspect of what we do. So I think I can say that's one thing common to many organizations that are customer facing. Everyone's striving to offer the best to the customer, and through the digital platforms that we are looking at, right? That's great. That's great learnings. At least my top 3 takeaways are like, one, you realize that everyone has the ability to perform no matter what unfamiliar situation you put them in, right? We figure out, we adapt, and we perform. Human spirit really shows up when we are put through adversities like this, like Mr. Mukesh has said, and the same adversity leads to a lot of innovation that can, give better results, right? And everyone will start realizing that it is possible what we probably believed is not possible before to engage through. Like if it is the digital means that we wanted to engage through in the past, it can be the customer or it can be the employee. I think we realized that it is probably possible, and it is the best way also given the current scenarios, right? So those are good realizations to take away. Just I want to take a moment's pause and ask all the audience, by the way, please feel free to post in your queries or questions in the Q&A section of the webinar. The idea is to keep this interactive, is to understand what is it that is going through your mind and what is it that your organizations are undergoing in terms of a culture transformation or, a trust drive in this period. We'll definitely try to take a pause in the middle of the session and try to take, after we are halfway through the session, we'll definitely try to pick up a few questions, right? On that note, I wanted to move on to the main topic that we wanted to talk about, and how is that reflecting in the current times, right? Like while we spoke about what's happened overall, Mr. Mukesh, the first thing that I wanted to ask is, with all these changes happening, what do you think is the role of culture in such a situation? Like what should culture really do for organizations when we are going through a crisis or a transformation like this?
Culture and trust is the most significant role rather than any of the other dimensions. Just to share an example with you, let's say during these times when we were also producing almost 100% of our capacity, we reduced slightly because of supply chain disruptions, but not because of people disruption. So we have a scheme called Suraksha Scheme. This is different from Suraksha Card. So in case of an eventuality happening to a contract worker, the company will take care of the family till the contract worker would have retired in normal superannuation age. So there's a scheme which gives a lot of confidence to the person that in the eventuality there is a company which will take care of the family. So there has not been a single case where the contract workers did not turn up for a job. In case they don't come up for the production or maintenance, the whole process would have suffered badly. That came through a culture. Nobody had any kind of an apprehension. So that came with a lot of belief that there's the company to take care of them. Similarly, for our own employees, our sales has not been hit, so to say. All the domestic sales where the companies were not, we seamlessly diverted to export. There's a lot of loyalty and a lot of belongingness to the company which we have. Our attrition rate is hardly 2%, and that too mostly for GTs who went on to pursue MBAs or pursue civil services. That is there. People leaving our company is there. Very, very rarely people leave the company. That's the kind of loyalty and comfort level which people have. Therefore, our whole promise of developing this corporate citizenship is very much evident during these adversities. We don't need to tell people that you need to work. They work on their own. They put in the best of their efforts, best of their mind to make sure that the company keeps running. Even the family members, a lot of family members come up for the voluntary. So for our hospitals, when we needed people who can take care of the corona patients, what on cost labor, who will, a lot of family members, we provided them all those PPs and all, they came up for volunteering such exercise. All of this comes from culture. There's this very strong sense of family belongingness with the company. That helps us a lot. There's hardly any disruption which we see. Even our union is part of a management than a union at all. Any kind of external influence, we don't need to bother about it because it's the union which takes care of everything. They are partners in our journey. We have a very strong concept called joint consultation, which is there since 1956. It is about a partnership concept. Now, this is also very closely tied up with the culture. What happens? In plant, there are issues related to production, safety, quality, welfare, all of that. We have joint committees where 1 year the union representative will be the chairman of the committee, and next year the management representative will be the chairman. It happens in all. So they partner with us in all our journey. Even when we went for a Deming Award to Japan, we made sure that our union president accompanies us to Japan, and we shared the podium with our managing director receiving that award. That comes from the culture. So therefore, there's this very strong bond amongst people that this is our own company, and we must do anything to make sure that the company keeps on.
That is great, and the kind of initiatives that you've picked are really amazing, right? And I think companies' choices on what you want to invest in comes from the values that you believe in, right? And I think giving that comfort to employees that their safety and their future is being taken care by the employee is communicated by that Suraksha Scheme, right? I'm sure it's been prioritized above many other things that the company could have done with the same capital investment, right? if it had to do. So that's really great to learn. But Mr. Rohit and Manoj, if you want to add any inputs, what do you think is the role of culture in these times? Manoj, if you want to.
Yeah, so there is a famous saying from Peter Drucker that culture eats strategy at breakfast and then even lunch and dinner. So I think culture is the biggest competitive advantage for any company, and it stays along with you, whether it is good time, bad times, etc., etc. So and it's not only about the companies, but culture is everywhere. I mean, even if we are talking about our family, we have a culture, and we thrive in our families because there is a culture, whether it is good time or bad time. And then, I mean, I can go on and on culture, but I think culture is kind of a blood which kind of ties everything together.
That is, and like I was saying, right, it gets the need of it gets established even more in times like these, right? When you're actually going through turbulent times, and you have that one single thread that is tying everyone together, I think it becomes more important now. Rohit, what is your perspective of what do you think is the role of culture?
I think, as rightly said by you, Gowthami, culture is, I think this is a testing time for the culture, how organization is sustaining it, what are the things the organization as a whole is doing, what the leadership team is doing, So it's an entire ecosystem, that works to create or break the culture. So as the trust is another pillar of culture, which instills confidence, which instills belief, which instills faith in the organization. I believe if all these things are at the in the right angles of the organization, so I believe you talk whichever organization you are working with, you can sustain through, you can swim through in the right direction.
True. And on that note, one question that comes to my mind, right? When let's say the norms have been broken and we are being put in scenarios that are very different from what they were before, does that put orgs' values and culture at risk? Are any of them bound to change or transform because, or in fact, not be the core element of the company because we've gone through a totally different situation? Is that possible, Rohit?
See, I believe culture is not at risk if you are able to sustain it. For me, culture is guided by the purpose and the values. And all these things, your purpose and the values are being put to test. In the current situation. So I would like to suggest here some specific actions, which we as an organization are taking, as well as, I'm sure most of the other organizations would be taking are. So the first and foremost for me would be, you will have to reflect on your purpose and values. You will have to pause. You will have to take some time, some moment to reflect on your purpose, and the values. Why? The reason why your business exists and how you believe in doing this business. Yeah, such crisis can bring in sharp focus on repurposing your purpose if that's the case, and whether your purpose is in congruence with your values. Yeah, so this is prima facie. You first of all you will have to reflect, and then you have to talk about your purpose and values. Yeah, with your team, with your stakeholders. You have to communicate with them openly and empathetically, and help stakeholders understand, the decision which organization as a whole is taking. So example, like business continuity. For all of us, most of us is a case in the current situation. So make sure that, we are communicating the actions in the way that they are consistent to the company's values. So we as an organization also, have been regularly, the leadership team has been regularly updating the employees as a whole, the business scenario update. What are the things happening? What are the sweet spots, which are coming up and how we are tackling them? What is the action the management is taking in dealing with the recent crisis? What are the initiatives we are taking for the people, for the staff, for the workers, for the contract people? So what are the areas which are being renegotiated, with the stakeholders, So basically you have to relook in your organization health overall. It could be through doing a zero-based approach, or it could be, interacting with the people and understand what are the things can be done, not done. So after, reflecting on it, you will also then have to bring your culture in to life, right? It could be for your customers, colleagues, and your employees and the wider community. The actions that you will take will ease your customers or your employees' pain in this crisis, and it will be remembered for long. Your colleagues, they will need to see the culture expressed in a meaningful way. So, because culture always matter, but it matters now the more in the current situation. So if you can relook in all these three areas and work over it, I think you can sustain your culture.
That is great. That is great to know, Mr. Rohit. Rohit, so one interesting thing I heard, and I heard this from everyone saying as well, right? Like in these 3 months, like what you really value will come out.
Correct.
Because this is also the acid test for whether your culture and values is really aligned to your organization's central purpose or not.
Yeah.
Right? If not, I think this is the time when, at least probably a couple of them which we've identified and said, this is something that I want to be, but is not something that's connected to my organization, I guess, will not have a place, right? And the other thing was like how we behave and how we create an experience and comfort for employees in these times is going to be remembered for years ahead.
Correct.
Right? I think that's one thing that I've heard from you and many of the leaders that I've been interacting with, right?
See, in fact, Hygienic Research being a more than 6 decades old company, we are also like a family to all our, more than 1,500 employees we work with. And there is a clear-cut regular dialogue with all the employees spread, all over the country. And either they are your factory managers, they are your regional heads or your management team. There has been a constant dialogue. We have also been using our collaboration platform wherein, people are expressing what is happening, what not, what are the actions we are taking, what are the suggestions. Some suggestions we are also welcome the suggestions, and they are being acted upon if it's rightfully, we feel so. So I think holistically, the employees buying in is a key here, because then they relate to your culture very well, right? I mean, I can also proudly say that we didn't lay off a single employee till now. I think Mukesh also said the same thing. The deductions hasn't been, done for the level of employees. So, and of course, I mean, there are certain things, but we have to make them realize, hey guys, look upon, this is what is the health of the organization as a whole. These are the sweet spots which you are working on. These are the areas we need to work more upon. And these are the objectives which we are working for the rest of the year. See, because some of your months have already been lost in the current situation. So how do you, relook over the situation, and how do you plan, proactively? And now is, as I was saying, the ability. Now the ability of you is getting tested, right? Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's really great to know. And one thing I want to add is I'm really glad to be having conversation with organizations and leaders from organizations who have, despite the adversity, taken the call to protect their employees and not take any measures against, let's say, furloughs or anything, right? And it's not a small impact, right, Rohit? Like, given the current scenario, I'm sure the consumer industry is struggling. And, right? It is impacted. And despite that, I'm really glad to see that I'm speaking to organizations who have put employees, financial security or job security and safety, everything in the forefront. Right? That's really great. And Manoj, I wanted to, something that Rohit touched upon, which I wanted to understand from you, right? Because I'm sure you'll have a perspective on this one. So we talked about, let's say, values can still sustain, right? As long as it is well connected to the purpose of the organization. But of course, the scenario that we are in today is different, right? We are not in an office environment. We are connected only virtually. We are socially distanced. Whoever came up with that word, although we were asked to maintain a 2-meter distance, we called it, I think, the true resultant setup that happened is we are socially distanced. We are probably not as connected to the peers that we were connected to, right? In that scenario, how do you bring about a sense of belonging for employees in the organization, right? And one thing we were talking about is it becomes even tougher when it's a new employee in the organization, right? Who's only connected virtually. So how should organizations handle scenarios like that?
Yeah, so see, I think the fundamentals of engaging an employee or bringing a sense of belongingness, etc., they don't really change whether you're working from home or whether you're working from office, whether you're working in crisis or whether you're working in good days. Those fundamentals remain the same. So what are those fundamentals? Are very simple. I mean, and many times we find that simplest things are hardest to execute. If we do those simple things right, then most of the things kind of go well. So one is, are the roles and goals very clear? Because when you're working from distance, if your roles and goals and what your manager is expecting out of you is not clear, then there is always a fight, there is always ambiguity, and that leads to distaste. So how can you do that? The second is transparent and honest communication, which is very proactive. So rather than being a reactive communication style, can it be more proactive? Can you communicate before it becomes a rumor? And can you be very honest about it? So whatever you are doing, can you tell it very, very, very openly and explain the people that why are you taking those decisions? And the third is a lot of things are generally lying in the minds and hearts of people. They generally don't speak it out. A culture of taking one-on-one feedbacks and talking to your colleagues and peers and your reportees really helps, because that is when you get some really great insights, which you generally don't get. And if you collectively act on some of those insights, you are kind of done. So those are a couple of things which I mean, fundamentally we have been doing it in spite, I mean, rather it was a pandemic or not a pandemic. Just that during this situation, we have made it more and more digital. We also use our own product, which actually helps people engage with their employees better. So that positively helps us in these initiatives. So yeah, I think these are a couple of things which have been working for us.
That is great to know. I think, like you said, the simple things like clarity in terms of role and transparency in terms of communication go a long, long way, right? In making sure everyone gets that sense of belonging. Mukesh, anything you want to add to this point? Like, although like in your organization, I think it's primarily you're not virtually spread out. I think you're well in the same place and working from the same office as before, right? But did anything change about how you were engaging the employees because of the new situation of maybe people are being asked to stay far away or be so distant? Is there anything different?
Yeah. So even we are largely based out of Jamshedpur. We operate in many locations, and for all office people, it was still work from home. So none of us were going to offices. We had our close township, so most of the people remained in township, and there are a lot of family engagement. So each of the department were assigned a responsibility to make sure that they keep engaged their teams, their colleagues, as well as to the wider internal customer which they were serving. So let's say we have a department which takes care of the adventure programs. There's a sports department. So sports department, they had planned summer coaching programs for other kids of our employees. So they continue to do that through a digital mode. So then the adventure program, they shared their experiences on what are the nuances and details of adventures through online mode. There is a ongoing yoga program internally which is happening, every day morning. There are a lot of family engagement programs which each of the departments have been doing, along with our CSR team as well. I also agree to Manoj's point that clarity in goals and transparent communication is absolutely essential. Fundamentally, everybody believes that these adversities keep coming. Today is COVID, tomorrow something else will be there. We should not stop. We should find out our own ways and means to keep on going. None of the things should stop us from doing what we have planned or intended to do. We may just take a small diversion, but finally we must reach to the ultimate objective.
That is absolutely right, Mukesh. So quickly, I wanted to take a pause. We had a couple of questions for the speakers, a couple of more points that we wanted to delve on, right? Particularly from the future perspective as well. Like, what do we see going forward? What is it that companies can do? But before that, I just wanted to take a couple of questions from the audience, and one of them that came up is also a topic or is also a conversation that has become stronger in every organization, right, because of the current scenario. So one of the questions from the audience was, we're all used to working in an environment where we have people around, right, where we connect and where we're more comfortable with having an open brainstorming or a discussion and see people around. And now we are working in silos and we are working in probably isolation of seeing only 2 or 3 people at home, right? Particularly, I think HRI, Rohit, has gone into a complete work from home mode for majority of the employees, right? And like Mukesh said, office employees are work from home, and Manoj, your organization is work from home. In that case, well-being is one conversation, right? Employees' mental health and well-being. Right? If you're missing that portion of interactions that you're used to, how are organizations taking initiatives towards employee well-being is the question that is being asked. If you can share any thoughts on that, Rohit, and then I'll move on to others.
Okay. I think this started in the mid of the March, this entire, jigsaw. And suddenly the factory stopped for us, for example. The salespeople stopped going to the markets and so on. So now the initial, the situation was now how do we stay connected? We have been connected always, through calls, through video calls, conferencing, and so on. But now what? So we formed a cross-functional teams across the locations, our factory managers, our HR team members, business partners. They formed small teams across. And then we also used a collaboration platform. Basically that was used to improve the health and the mental well-being. There were some sessions, live sessions, which were being done by the trained people. Then there were some specific tasks which we used to engage our employees with. We used to tell, hey guys, these are some good, suppose example, some good yoga asanas which you should do. So they used to do it. They used to promote it, and how they used to feel it. Everything used to be there on the platform. So primarily, I mean, it was a ripple effect. So if somebody started doing, the other people also used to do, oh wow, I mean, it's easy to do. So the ripple effect then spread across more than 1,000 people across. So this impacted the people. They started sharing. In fact, there was a big connection of a factory people with the sales people earlier, because see, they all work in their own domains, right? As we were saying, silos. But this platform helped them to encourage each other, that we know, oh, this person works in Guwahati. Somebody from Himachal is getting in touch with person in Guwahati or in Bombay, and so on. So that was one of the things that happened. Then there was, our leaders across locations. They started creating cohorts, wherein they used to, gradually on, weekly basis get in touch with their teams, like what is happening, is everything well at home, any support you expect from the organization, especially we also brought in a COVID insurance for our frontline as well as our workers across India, irrespective of they already were covered through ESIC and one on the medical insurance, but we took additional COVID insurance for them. See, because they are the people who are always exposed in the market, right? And these are the people who are the revenue generators for us. So that was another thing we brought in, so that mentally as well as psychologically they are okay. Hey, there is something I can depend upon going forward. So this was another thing. Then slowly, when the business started resurrecting in May, then there were certain good things that started happening. We started highlighting them. Hey, like the factories have opened up. These factories have started 50% of their production. The orders have started coming up. So this overall created a atmosphere, the environment wherein people were always at ease that nothing is happening. I think we are good to go, and the company is always there to support us. So leaders played a very vital role in engaging all through.
True. That is great. Any input, Mukesh and Manoj, on how do you see actually wellness in the long run? Like employee wellness or employee well-being as a focus. I think it has really risen to the forefront in the last 3 months, right? And how do you see that panning in the long run, Mukesh?
Yeah, so even before COVID seeped in, wellness was there in focus. And we were doing a lot of stuff on employee wellness. So one on mental wellness, we already have a partner of one-to-one-help.net, which is accessible to all employees and their family members to provide any kind of a psychological or counseling support. We have wellness champions. So we have close to 300 doctors, and a lot of them have been assigned as wellness champions. They take regular sessions on what are the various lifestyle management things, like what are the various wellness initiatives which people can do. That's a second thing. We have a full-fledged sports complex which promotes people to participate in some or the other sporting feats, be it shooting, be it archery, be it horse riding, whatever. So that also provides a lot of encouragement to people on that. And these things intensified during last 3 months, not physically but at least virtually. A lot of campaigns and a lot of support provided to people to reach out to such support. So I think it was already there, only the mode of communication got changed.
True. Agree with that. Just one more question. There is one more question that I wanted to take from the audience, but before that, I also wanted to bring about one perspective from all of you, right? While, like I said, I'm glad I'm speaking to organizations who put employee safety and security in the forefront. There's, of course, the impact of the entire economic crisis that resulted out of this pandemic is real, right? And there is some sort of need for organizations to look at cost optimization, or need for organizations to look at being sustainable for the period before the markets bounce back, right? In such a situation, of course, like every organization's intent is to not directly come to the point of, let's say, employee costs, right? But rather look at something else before we actually arrive at that. But even in this situation, if organizations should choose to invest back in employees, right, or still make investment in employees, where do you think that should be? Right? Manoj, if you want to go share your inputs on that, and then we can have others.
So because of this entire situation, there has been a pressure on optimizing cost on most of the organizations in the world, and some organizations have taken steps where they have tried to reduce this cost by different kind of methods which they have applied in their orgs. Now, the best thing which companies can actually do during this time and can continue doing this is that when they are saving cost on a lot of things which used to be heavy cost, maybe 4 to 5% of their overall cost, like say the physical infrastructure, or maybe the food and beverage cost, or any kind of travel cost, which has almost become zero today. How can you invest the savings from that cost back into your employees? And that can be a great investment, because whatever you invest today will have great benefits later on. So even if companies have gone through any kind of trimming down their workforce because of the pandemic situation, but whatever number of employees they have today, they should definitely invest back into those guys. And these investments can go into different areas. One can be definitely around training and development, continuous learnings, because this is also a time when people can actually spend time on learning, upskilling themselves. The second thing is around how do you motivate these guys to kind of do their best in the current situation. So any small recognition, any small gratitude and appreciation really helps boost the morale of the employees. And third is how can you be part of the savings for the employees as well. So how can you give them certain perks and discounts and benefits which they can actually use to save some money on their day-to-day spends, whether it is a grocery, whether it is their training, or whether it is for their households, etc. So if you are able to give any kind of savings which helps the employees go through the situation, is also a very great initiative. So these are a couple of initiatives which we have taken in our organizations, and we have also seen some of the other companies doing it, either using our product or something else, which has been helping them.
And I would like to ask Rohit and Mukesh also to add on what are some things in which, some ways in which, of course, Mukesh gave a great example when we opened the session itself, right? Like, despite all that is happening around, Tata Steel Long Product is having a Suraksha scheme where so much investment is going into the future and safety of employees or security of employees. But of course, one thing I resonate with what Manoj said is probably even the small things like an appreciation. I think when we are talking about culture, the culture of recognizing someone and appreciating someone, I think a pat on the back cannot happen because you are not allowed to anymore, or at least it's not safe to do anymore, or you're not in office. But I think doing that even virtually, even digitally, like how Rohit has mentioned about collaborating on a platform, right? Maybe you did invest in that much before. But in whatever ways, if we can give back to employees where they can still feel engaged, still feel motivated, and still feel a valuable contribution to the organization, right? Even that comes a long way. But Rohit, any inputs on, despite the cost drives that are happening, how can we still invest in employees?
See, already told earlier also, like probably we also did a zero, budgeting again. We relooked on our overall, costs, which are fixed as well as variable. There was a leadership team which sat and thought of, brainstormed, but these are the things which can be, which can go off for the time being, and these are the critical things which are required to be. Right. So already, I mean, you have to right size your overall budgets. That's how the organization will be able to thrive. You can't always go and get yourself a loan or a lend money from a bank account and then start paying interest. So I think the leadership team played a superb role in this for HRI. And then going forward, see, our factory started, as I said, there was our Northeast factories, which started in mid of April. There was certain few members who worked, day and night, of course, with the safety measures, and they ensured that factory is right, the entire maintenance, the checking, everything is done, and we are raring to go. The same happened a month later in our Himachal units, So the people who were working behind the scene, who were working across the shifts, to ensure that the factory operations are there, our CEO straight away, he did a small, first of all, a call with them, thanking them outrightly, straight from the heart, that I'm really thankful that I've got such a good, benevolent team. Then we shared e-cards with them, again, digitally signed by our CEO. There were some small incentives which were paid to them, and so on. So apart from the factory people, there were also the sales teams, who started working, who took, of course, within the domains of the state, regulations, they went ahead, start working, start getting the orders, the revenue generation, and so on. So again, for them also, there were some special incentives. You don't have targets in certain situations. In April, May, you can't know, you don't know how the business will be working in across states. So there were some special incentives, which were paid to them directly. Again, recognition from our CEO straight away that these are the people, and they were, told across. The entire communication went across the company, and I think it was a moment of wow for all of them. And we call them a wow cards primarily. So I think these 2-3 things have been impacting, have been helping us, in bring in the change that, hey, the things are moving on now.
That is great. That is great. And we've seen much of these while we were working together as well. Thank you so much, Rohit. I think there were many things that we've learned while we were partners to HRI at Darwinbox. Mukesh, I think one last question from the audience that I want to ask you to address, right? And I think we can close the session with that. We are towards the end of the time that we had. One question is, there is one L&D agenda that probably needs to be far more aligned for the future in order to help employees to upgrade themselves to digital ways, right? Because I think there are, although even like you mentioned, there's a lot of technology investment that's been done by Tata Steel on product much before this happened, right? But I'm sure every time we go for more digital ways and more technological ways, there's a need to help employees adopt and cope with the entire situation, right? So how do you see L&D panning out to actually rise up to this role that is there now?
So actually, I found that for L&D, this is the most suitable opportunity to rise up to the occasion and find out various means on which the learnings can be transferred. See what happens, people who are used to traditional classroom kind of training programs, the important takeaway for a learning L&D professional is how much of the learning can a participant get internalized. Most of them, especially at the worker level, if it is a repeat kind of a training, it gets internalized far more. For others, if people who learn at their own pace, that can get internalized. So from L&D professionals, digital methodology is the best suitable mechanism to meet such agenda, because you can have repeatability also, you can have learning at your own pace also. Fortunately, we have also again invested a lot in digital learning methodologies. And there are a lot of e-learning packages, and there is a cross-knowledge subscription and the skill port subscription which is available. All the employees, depending on their needs, are already assigned such programs, which they can take at their own comfortable time, which which is accessible to their computers, on their smartphones, and it's a very, very high quality and animated kind of a visual standard operating procedures mapped into a learning methodology, which actually manifests the whole impact and internalization of learning. So I think this is now an opportunity to easily shift away from classroom to the digital methodology to meet the overall objective of learning.
Got it. And just a very, I think a very operational question. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking it will help the audience. If anyone has a suggestion around if employees need to be in quarantine, is there a kind of leave that needs to be granted? Did any organization adopt any kind of special leave for those employees? Was one question that was there.
Yeah, so at Tata Steel, we have anybody on quarantine is given a special leave, because otherwise also not even on quarantine, if the person is not required to physically come on workplace and is also not able to do work from home, it is a special leave for him.
Got it. Yeah, I think we might need to wrap up, but one more thing that I wanted to ask from again what Dr. Sudha Subramanian has posted. Do you see employee selection undergoing a shift because of what has happened right now? Like, is there a different kind of skill that organizations are looking at? Rohit, Manoj, or it's still like central to what your company is or what your organization is? So it doesn't change.
My personal view is, I think, rather than having a homogeneous diversity, going forward, there would be more of a heterogeneous diversity that will come into picture. The people, who are willing to, think differently, the people who can, shift their gears, to a, higher angle, they will be the people, who would be required by the organization. Because you are already working in a culture which is already designated for your current environment. But going forward, we will envisage there are different ways of working. So the people who are able to bring in some sea change, can think differently, I think that would be the key. And I firmly believe that the people who can break the jinx and the monologue, they are the people, who I would look forward to bring in my organization.
That is great. Manoj, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah. So I think I see there should be massive changes in the way companies hire people. One, because earlier we generally were starting with suspicion rather than supervision. Now the entire work from home has kind of given us this confidence that, you don't have to start with this word of suspicion. You can work with somebody who is as far as you think, and the work is even doing well. So I was speaking to somebody in the US, and they mentioned that instead of people hiring in the valley where the talent is very costly, they would go into the hinterland and the interiors where you get better talent and more loyal talent. And the second thing is, I think there will be a good combination of aptitude and attitude. So rather than companies only going by aptitude as a dimension, it has to be a good mix of attitude and aptitude. I think those will be two key changes.
I think definitely the borders for talent has come down. That's one thing that we've realized. Like you can really go and hire the right kind of talent wherever you find them, as long as, of course, we're in an industry that can work remotely, right? So I want to close. I think we're 5 minutes past the time. Thank you very much for your insights. Before I let everyone go and let the panel go as well, I want to end it on an inspirational note, and I want to know what is one organizational value that each of you value the most. I think we can. I don't know how other screens are aligned. I see Rohit first on my screen, so I keep saying
okay.
Rohit.
So for me, the value, that going forward would be the ambition. Yeah, and
ambition.
Ambition. Yeah. So ambition is primarily to bring the wheels again on track, right? And to ensure that we are going the way it is expected. So and keeping keeping the purpose and the values intact.
Got it. Mukesh, what is one value that you?
I think for us it would be pioneering.
Binary.
Pioneering.
Okay. Pioneering.
So, pioneering,
okay.
yeah.
Innovation,
Because
like you said. So.
Yeah, any kind of difficulty, adversity can seamlessly be tied over if you have this pioneering mindset.
That is great.
Because we are firm believer, let's not look at benchmark, let's create benchmarks.
And that's definitely an inspiration we want to look up to, Mukesh. Manoj, what is one value that you value the most?
Yeah, so I think mine is very similar to what Mukesh mentioned. So it is more about innovation because as humans, we have to keep innovating because there will be some or the other adversity every day. We have to keep innovating. We have to forget our inertias and keep unlearning, relearning, and keep moving on. Yeah.
I think we keep saying, of course, our favorite in our organization on any given day is bias to action. Like we want to be people who basically take an action, come what may the occasion, right? But I think I definitely want to tell everyone and leave on a note that let's adapt and let's evolve. That's one other thing that we all believe in. I'm sure these are occasions that have made us realize that many things are possible and we can gear up to many things in future through the spirit of innovation that you called out and the spirit of ambition to actually do better, right? I hope that all leads us to better evolution and better future. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Mukesh, Rohit, Manoj. Thank you for joining us today.